Baba, I have a request and then some questions about imagination. Uh, Baba, there's been so much amazing knowledge that's come out of the last year with these Zoom calls, and of course, all your visits to the States. But could you just quickly, in a few words, summarize the most important parts of your teaching that you'd like us to remember? You know, the key essential parts.
Essential part is the dedication, discipline, and patience. These three mantras, do not ever forget. Dedicate yourself for the cause, that do or die attitude you must have. Understand I need it and I must go for that. Then relaxed, remain relaxed. And the essential part is that first your job is to silence your mind. Stop its analyzing or judgmenting, chatterbox. This can happen when you are simply watching. And when you are watching, you are not watching anything. You are trying to keep quiet actually. Then you can watch yourself as that infinite soul. So these are the important things. Then know yourself. You are much more beyond the birth and death of your physical body.
Thank you, Baba. So my question is about imagination. You've said many, many times that imagination is no ordinary power, but you haven't really elaborated on that imagination. It is imagination the seed of creation, really, the seed, the power within consciousness to manifest into phenomenal existence.
Yes, the creative power, the moment the mind starts visualizing or thinking about anything, if at that time the concentration is best, so then its potency would have increased to be creative. So, based on that, it can, you see, a little more elaborately, you start thinking about one personality or a figure, a character, anything. Say you fall in love with the master, you start thinking about that master. So that picture appears within your mind. The more you fall in love, means the concentration of the mind increases. As the concentration of the mind increases, the picture of the master starts becoming more and more solid. Initially, you would know that you are imagining, that's why that picture is there, even. But slowly, as you progress, you would forget that you are imagining, but you would be wondering how beautifully. So, this I have also explained in three stages. First is the creative ability, imagination. The second one is mental projection. Like when you do deeper meditations, when you have gone to tapas, so when you do deeper meditation, you would feel as if your master or whichever deity or anybody whom you would be thinking, as that incident would appear as if it is happening next to you, surrounding you, you are in the midst of that. If you are in love with the master or a form of the divine, you would feel that divine's form or the master's form be with you. So that is how the mental projection happens. So when it increases to 100% concentration, so when you do tapas, so then a manifestation can happen. Manifestation, in my opinion, would be as solid, as physical as this world is. A physical figure can appear before you of the divine master, of the guru. So thus, that means in all these things, the more concentration has increased, know that you are getting more and more connected. Slowly, you are getting absorbed into the ultimate truth. The more that you imagine about the divine, So that is the essence of Bhakti Marga. I have told, due to imagination, mind has gone out of control. But using the same imagination, single pointedly, when you imagine about one thing, then mind becomes single pointed. You imagine about hundreds of things, then mind splits into layers and layers and billions of layers. It, so then it becomes weakened. That is how I tell, every incarnation after incarnation, mind gets diluted. It becomes more and more weakened. So that's why you would have created this world, suppose, when you were with its 100,000 potency consciousness. That is the concept of Brahma. But now, after that, I have also explained the next concepts of other angels, and slowly different. So the consciousness is shown as a little bit getting corrupted with insecurity, with some vengeance, with wanting the power, sticking on all these things. So then that gets dropped. So that is how weaken happens. So using the same imagination, you can go back to the self and merge with the self, the more that you are able to imagine. So, or once for all, if you can overcome the imagination, so you can merge then also. This is possible. So it takes some time when you imagine and want to merge in devotional path. Your mind has to become more and more strengthened. So that is the power of imagination. That's why I have always told, the power of imagination is not an ordinary thing. Based on this imagination only, entire universe is being run.
So, Baba, I believe you've said that ultimately the whole of phenomenal existence is an imagination. And would that be because nothing can be created until it's first imagined? And I imagine it from from Brahman, that Rudra appearing out of nowhere. It just, these imaginations have to appear before they can be created. And then maybe intelligence and consciousness and energy put it all together. And so you have those three stages you mentioned, uh,
You see, the power of Parabrahman is so much, he first doesn't have to plan, visualize. Just like I keep telling, when you ask a question, I don't have to visualize, plan, see its figure in my mind and then answer. Spontaneously the answer comes, and that is why that mind doesn't get involved with whatever answer I have given. It will remain in its real self. That is how the first creation would have happened. From the Parabrahman, enormous amount of consciousness would have arisen, which we call it as the Brahma concept, the creator. So that would not have planned or visualized, let it happen like this. Simply by a spontaneous thing, the creation started happening. That is also, I tell, this creation has happened due to God, but not according to God's wishes. That's what I have tried to tell. That's why God is not getting involved with the creation. If He had visualized like that, as you are mentioning, then we could have asked God, why did you imagine somebody to be unhappy? You are unreasonable person, not proper. So because you imagined somebody to be unhappy, so that creation has become unhappy. But it is not God. Afterwards, when the mind started becoming diluted, this visualizing started coming. Now an ordinary person has to plan what he wants to do next, about his future, about his next day. He has to keep thinking a lot and plan and then execute that one. But a yogi does not have to. Like I know on Sunday, if I have to sit with you all, I don't have to plan much what type of questions will come, what should be my answer, what should I do. All this thing doesn't come. Simply when the Sunday comes, I come and sit here, and I tell by practice, you all sit for meditation, remain relaxed, relaxed. All these I instruct. Then as the question comes, I start answering. even elaborately comes. Sometimes I myself am surprised how this much is coming. What a knowledge! This is all from the source is the divinity definitely. There is nothing for me to boast or take credit. It is simply coming like that.
Um, so, Baba, is the nature of consciousness to be creative? Because the moment that life appears in consciousness in any living form, it's nonstop activity. And if you're on the spiritual path, you may spend the rest of your life trying to silence the activity. And it's not until you silence the very last or first activity, that I am, that very first concept, that you transcend consciousness, and then you have peace. So is the nature of consciousness to be creative? And because you don't really get out of that until the mind stops, and then consciousness stops too.
Here, consciousness means we have to try to understand whether you are talking of the supreme consciousness.
Right.
Say, supreme consciousness as a whole doesn't create. Now, if you try to understand astronomically also about galaxies or Milky Way, any such thing, whatever length and width that the creation has happened, but when you compare to the actual space, that is very small, minute. Even sometimes astronomically, when you see the atlas or maps, Milky Way is mentioned, and they will mention somewhere here is our solar system. Then we realize how small that solar system compared to that Milky Way. So, this Milky Way, entire creation, galaxies after galaxies, compared to that Parabrahman, so this is just nothing. A small ant type has happened. So, only that much of consciousness would have come out to create. Not the entire Parabrahman has come out to create. That is how the Parabrahman has not got involved. And this first enormous portion also is, that is why this concept was given by ancient sages as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Means Brahma is the enormous amount of consciousness which created. That also did not plan and create. That is why it did not get involved. Brahma did not get involved with its creation. He remained as a divine figure. It is worshipped as a divine. Vishnu also is the protector, sustains that creation, that imagined thing, but never gets involved into that one. That's why it is a divine figure. Shiva is back into thoughtlessness state, this entire creation. After this, the next generation, whether it is angels and all such things that is mentioned, so they all started becoming corrupted because desires arose. So as the desires arose, insecurity also came. And because there is a desire, I want to have this power, I must protect my seat. So then an insecurity appears. What if somebody snatches this from me? So that's what it is like. I sit on a dais here and give darshan when devotees come. But I am not insecure. If somebody else takes this, I am very happy to go and sit in a corner, that in the body. So there is no such insecurity. And whatever we have achieved, that peace, nobody can snatch it away from us. Like in my nursery school also, teacher used to tell, knowledge and wisdom are the things which no robber can rob you of. To gain that one first.
Beautiful, Baba. Just one little clarification. So back to imagination. Ultimately, is imagination what caused that huge eruption of consciousness to appear from the Parabrahman?
Only that from the Parabrahman, a small portion came out. That is all. That is that Brahma have been explaining.
But the thing is, Baba, there's something happened. It seems, I mean, at least you imagine in our mind that something happened. And so there, and it seems like nothing can happen if there. I mean, like the imagination for consciousness, or maybe that came after that big eruption of consciousness appeared.
You see, now another clue I will give you. As a human who has the mind, he imagines something, then he changes that imagination. So, in that imagination, really nothing had happened because it was only an imagination. Using this clue, we have to understand that really a creation did not happen because it was only a small imagination. For the God, for Parabrahman, as far as is concerned, that creation which we consider as enormous Milky Way galaxies, that is just nothing, a small portion. So it happened and it did not happen. Also, as a master, as a yogi, I always advise the seeker, never try to consider that something happened. Then you are getting involved mentally. Nothing happened.
Okay. Thank you, Baba.
Well, I have a lot to ask about this one, Baba. I've been thinking a lot about creativity from the standpoint of mission or a larger cause. As we people are in the world, we could do our work and it could just be, doing basic things, or we could focus our purpose or have a mission to do something larger for other people. So getting back to what you were saying, for the ordinary person, we need to visualize and imagine. So let's say even COVID came, then I'm looking at creativity from the standpoint of how it transformed and created the current world right now as it is. Something like climate change. People need to look at the situation and use creativity to come up with solutions. So is it just that we're using our imagination and focusing on a problem or something that could help society, and then is it coming from the divine, or is it coming from the mind of the people to find those solutions to serve something higher? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes. This is a very sensible thing one need to understand here. When you imagine as a human being, then if you consider that you have imagined, that means an illusion happened because of the collision of the mind with the brain. The brain using, then the mind becomes considering itself that I am the doer. If that does not appear, if it doesn't appear so, if that doership doesn't come, then the source is the divinity, the ultimate. So you leave it like that, you get connected to the divinity, then you will see wonderful, amazing imagination can come. Like a genius. If a person is genius, he is almost in touch with the divinity. But yet, if he gets anywhere that I am the doer, then that gets reduced, that power of imagination gets reduced. So this is how it happens.
Well, Baba, do you feel that in the solution of the world, we have, like, human creativity has transformed it to this point from centuries ago, eons ago? There are things in this world that need attention, that they're things that need to be elevated. And what I'm looking at from my business is helping other businesses find their mission, find their cause, their larger cause, so that they could create good in the world. And do you feel that it is up to, if we're going to live in this world, you have said at least have a larger cause, right? So do you feel that people should be taking their basic needs and thinking larger and imagining and creating for the larger cause?
Yes. You see, observe me when I'm talking, very carefully pay attention. While I appreciate this imagination might be needed for this world, And if one wants to imagine a larger cause also, is no problem. But never get involved that this imagination from you, means any individual, surrender to the divinity. So this is coming from the divine, and divine is unaffected. So this imagination is useful in this world, but this is a very small thing. A while ago, while discussing with Agastya, I told the entire creation, the galaxies, Milky Ways, galaxies, astronomically, is just nothing for God. It's just a small macro speck type of thing. That's what has happened. So, within that, imagine this imagination for a larger cause. It could be exciting for a human being for a while when a cause is happening, when a thought is happening for that cause. Oh, now the pandemic is happening. If a genius person can find some solution for this to overcome. But ultimately, what a yogi sees in this world of illusion, one after another keep coming, keep coming. You sort out one problem, then another problem crops up. Years ago, centuries ago also, this type of pandemics came, which wiped out humanity and other creatures perhaps. Then everybody started researching to find a solution. So imagination grew. So that helped to a larger extent. As the humanity was heaving a sigh of relief, then another pandemic came like that. So finally, you try to use imagination for a larger cause, for the welfare of the world. At the same time, don't forget that you are not the doer. Then it is coming from the divinity.
Thank you, Baba.
So, Baba, just one quick clarification. Less ego, you still have imaginations?
To a certain extent, but you don't get involved with the imagination. See, you imagining and you getting with your imagination is totally two different things. Like you make a movie is no problem, but you should not become emotional with the movie that you have made. You are simply made with an imagination, make believe. So that is what it is.
Because the ego is what it thinks it's doing in receiving everything.
Receiving.
It becomes the
So,
author. It thinks it's the
yeah,
author.
without that ego, if the imagination comes, then the mind settles. It won't be holding on to that imagination all the time. Like I answer and then I forget about it. You cannot exactly ask me to repeat everything I told, because that is not in the consciousness at all.
I'll just ask you again. Okay, thank you, Baba.
It will come from the divine.
When we get so involved in the world, we become emotional. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed with emotion. But when you bring us out of the meditation, you are saying that shloka brahmanandam paramasukhadam kevalam jnanamurtyam bhavatitam gaganasadrisham. So this word bhavatitam, I've been trying to understand, how do we go beyond our emotions? Is there a connection or there's no connection? Because when we are sitting in meditation, tears come out and we get emotional sometimes. It may be just out of love for God, or it could be just out of some sorrow, whatever it is, but we get emotional. But we want to go to a state of bhavatitam, because that's how Brahman has been described, right? There's a quantum leap of a jump in that state from bhava.
Yeah, it will happen. You see, when you first time taste the peace or any such thing, that could create some emotions initially. As you go deeper and deeper, become quiet and quiet and quiet. So then you go bhavatita. Then all these emotions all subside. It settles. Mind becomes totally composed. And you just remain in that peace. And you won't become emotional with that peace. See, now two things. having peace is different. Becoming emotional when you get that peace is different. It is as good as having a chocolate is different. When you become emotional when you are having chocolate is different. So you see this world, that is how you see it as a witness. A yogi is always a witness to this world. You see this world is different, but you get involved with this world is different. Emotions make you to get involved. So you just see, you are only a witness. That will come as you progress in meditation more and more. When you are crying means you are enjoying that bliss. You have started enjoying, but you have to go further, further, further until the mind doesn't settles down. Manolaya has to happen. That will happen one day. If you simply continue with the meditation, you can overcome all emotions.
Is it possible to go into that state immediately or after a lot of practice, of course?
After a lot of practice, I would say,
Yeah, then we can go into that bhavatita state.
yeah, it is possible.
Easily.
It is. It happens as you progress and progress. Gradually, as you do lot of practice.
And then we don't get emotional easily when we are transacting in the vyavaharika.
Yeah, once you reach that stage, then you won't become so emotionally. If at all you want to become emotional, you have to act upon as if you are emotional. If you want to impress others.
Thank you.
Hi, Babaji. Nice to see you.
Hi.
My question is about the brain and meditation. So we know from the pandemic that if patients get COVID, that their anxiety can increase because of the activation of part of the brain called the amygdala, which is the brain's alarm clock. So this structure is subcortical, which means it's not under conscious control. It just gets fired by this virus. But we also have patients who have anxiety disorders and post-traumatic stress that have an increase in their alarm clock. It's too out of control and they're always nervous. Yet we know that if we increase the part of the brain called the frontal lobe, that we can control the emotion. 30 to 40% of our brain is the frontal lobe, but only about 10% is utilized by most people in the world. Yet we know from studies that Buddhist monks have tremendous amounts of activity on the frontal lobe when you do functional brain scans. So their concentration has increased to such a level that they have control over their emotions. They can control that alarm clock, the amygdala. So you've given us something not only priceless in our enlightenment, but also in our evolution as a human mind to become stronger and to have a control over that alarm clock. My question is, I have a lot of patients who have the above mentioned diagnoses, and a lot of them don't agree with meditation, but can I try to teach them with your permission how to meditate gently and to teach them to focus on that third eye, which is the frontal lobe, to help them with their symptoms so they don't need so much medication?
Yes, no problem. You can always
Okay.
teach them. If it can be helpful, that is very good. They teach them relax, gently, close the eyes and just watch. Like that you can try to help them. The more
Okay,
that
great.
they are able to become quiet in the mind, the load on the brain also can get decreased. So that can be very beneficial to the brain.
Yes, so that's a great thing. I can start sharing at whatever level they're comfortable. I mean, even I'm not, whatever level they would practice meditation. I think focusing on that third eye would be so helpful for them.
Yes, definitely.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi, good morning, Babaji. I have a couple of questions. The first is, I think at one point you mentioned karma yoga, and I just wanted to understand a bit more how we can practice karma yoga like every day in our day-to-day activities. And the second question is, like, I've been trying to be more regular in my meditation practice, but I think due to lack of discipline and willpower, weaker willpower, I have not been able to stay consistent. So I just wanted to understand, like, how can we train our like discipline and willpower in terms, especially when it comes to being regular with meditation.
Yeah, first the Karma Yoga you asked. In a simple way, if you understand in your everyday activities, you put an effort, and if you have a desire to achieve a livelihood or any result, anything, you go on doing that one. As the results come, whether it is to your like or not, accept it graciously in a polished way. So that is the yoga. Then your mind will recede. It won't go into a brooding, it won't become a victim of any emotions. That is why the word destiny also used. If necessary, you can consider this was destined to happen, so that the mind does not lose hope and it remains quiet. These two things are very important. Otherwise, if the things doesn't happen according to expectation, then mind can become unhappy, depressed, and go into a brooding. All these things happen. So then the yoga doesn't happen. The mind spins. So if you accept the result, simply acceptance is one simple thing. If you practice every day, so karma yoga happens. Whatever way you are living, you are acting upon, simply when the results come, you are just at peace, no problem attitude. So this is the karma yoga in a simpler way. And about discipline for a consistent practice, 2-3 things important. Understanding the essence and the need for you, the peace that you require, or before death happens to the physical body. That is how the ancient teachers repeatedly taught, including Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, before death shall claim thee, go to the knowers of truth. They said this one. Also, sitting at their lotus feet, seeking their permission, ask such intelligent questions, and as the answers come and as the teachings come, adopting such methods, achieve the truth for yourself. So this thing you need to understand. Like many times I have told how that need is understood. Suppose you are sitting on a chair, suddenly you realize there is a time bomb under your chair. You won't be waiting for any lecture from any guru. Your first priority will be you would like to get out of that dangerous situation. For that, you will put an effort. You will be disciplined, you will be dedicated, no time for anything else. That is the priority you want to do. First, you have to survive, only then you can think about anything else. So, like that, if you understand this life also is impermanent, the body has come into existence and it is going to die. The heart can stop any moment. It can come today, tomorrow, or 10 years. We don't know. Nobody knows. So these points, if one understands, then the dedication and discipline comes with a small fear. Yeah, we should not allow this time to go. It is important. I must sit down and practice. So as you go on practicing every day in a disciplined way, then every day at that time, if you don't become, you become restless. So that is how you practice discipline and consistent practice. Understanding death can come to the body any moment. Once death happens, you lose control over yourself. You don't know what's going to happen next life, where you are going to be born, what the mind is going to visualize. It is very difficult, almost impossible to know these things. So now there is a chance when your body is healthy. If you decide you want to sit down, you can sit down. If you decide you want to meditate, you can meditate. So exercise some willpower and then you will be disciplined.
Great. Thank you, Babaji.
Namaste, Babaji. Thank you so much for these beautiful, subtle explanations of imagination based on the great questions tonight. As you know, Sanskrit has very precise terms for all of these different things that are more precise than English. Would you say that the best word for imagination would be Maya or avidya?
Yeah, Maya is a word used, you see, when you imagine mentally and then your mind considers that imagined thing as the fundamental reality, then it gets involved with that, considering that as a reality. That is the Maya. Basic definition for illusion. Mind's imagination is also known as Maya.
Okay. And what about the term avidya?
Or
Avidya?
avidya is ignorance.
Is there a connection between the two? Maya and avidya?
Yeah, due to ignorance, Maya engulfs you. It takes over. If you have that knowledge awareness, so just like you light a candle and the darkness goes away, the same way you gain that knowledge awareness, so that Maya also gets dissolved.
Thank you, Babaji.
Thank you, Babaji, for these amazing sessions. I have two quick questions. One is on when it's sort of an interesting, I guess, connection. I think when you see a picture of a saint, and or when you first encounter a picture or an image of a saint, it seems like there can be an instantaneous knowing or bhava or love that can happen, amazing, and you might not have even seen that saint before in person. Why is that? Is there some sort of how is it the mind knows or has able to have this emotion without ever seeing, I guess, a saint or an enlightened being before?
It happens naturally, and often it can be inexplicable. So, if when it happens naturally, you don't plan and you don't devise any such things, you just fall in love. Maybe a previous life's connection is also there somewhere, that unknown to you, you become so attracted. Often this happens. So, this is also possible, though you may not be able to track down exactly where it was, how did it happen, all these things. It may not be possible because in the previous life, when the brain died, the memory also is gone. But mind has been carrying symptoms of such experiences. So, due to these reasons, also can happen. So, whatever it is, it's very difficult to conclusively explain. Amazing things.
And that's beautiful. And then the other question I had is, sort of in the discussion about getting involved in the world and becoming a doer. Why is the tendency or the habit to get drawn into the world, and where do desires arise from? It just seems like they're just can come from nowhere and you don't know where they come from, but they're there.
You see, somewhere in some life in the beginning, when the I came into existence of the imagination, with that I came mine. That's how the problem started. Me and mine. So, in this world, if you can remain, nothing is yours. You own anything, no problem. But mentally, you always don't have any attachment, means as if it is yours. Then there is no involvement happens at all. Just like we live in a monastery, we have everything, but in the mind there is no such idea at all. I remember, just as an example, I will tell you, soon after my tapas, I was traveling in another country. Some host had brought beautiful dishes, all food for me so much. So one of the devotees who were there said, how beautiful to become a yogi. You are treated so beautifully, so much well. I said, if you are interested to eat all these things, don't become a yogi. You will lose interest. As long as I used to watch Swamiji, and hundreds and thousands used to come in a queue and do darshan. That used to give such a thrill, amazing thing. How glamorous, how glorious a yogi's life we used to think. But when I have become yogi, the same time, sometimes during big functions, hundreds and hundreds of people come, do pranam and go. No imagination comes at all. That thrill also doesn't happen at all, that I am a yogi and so many people are doing pranam. So that is how you can remain without getting involved. You are there and you are not there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Baba sometimes often explains the last instruction of Krishna to Arjuna after the long discourse that happened in the Bhagavad Gita. Could you explain the last instruction that Krishna had given to Arjuna on the field of battle in the Gita?
Yeah. He says, if you cannot understand anything else, just come to my surrender. Then also you can get liberated. See, this has a lot of meaning. As previously for the question with Rayan, as we were discussing, so you have to fall in love with such faith, considering the Guru as the divine. You just don't see the Guru only in the physical body. You see the Guru in everywhere, in everything, as everything. I have told before also, if you get slapped, it's the Guru. If you get kissed, it is the Guru. Like that, in Advaita, in the non-duality, you have to visualize Guru, only Guru, and surrender to that one entity. So then your mind becomes single-pointed. Eventually, by the grace of the same divine, you lose the imagination of the Guru also. Gurur naiva shishya. There is neither Guru nor any disciple. Then your consciousness becomes quiet and merges with the self. You get liberated. This was what Krishna advised Arjuna, because Arjuna always loved and respected Krishna. So when you love and respect somebody naturally for a long time, so your mind accepts such a person's teachings or any instructions. Like for example, you have fallen in love with Baba, then your mind automatically accepts if I give you some instructions. If I ask you, you have to do this, Clifford, I need you to do this, then you won't think twice, you will simply do it. Otherwise, the mind becomes agitated. Why should I be doing this? Who is this person to ask me to do like this? Human mind doesn't accept easily anybody like that one. That is why it has to appeal, and then only things work. So that's what Krishna advised. This is a wonderful devotional science of psychology, how the mind can work. Even Swamiji used to tell, you lose anything but do not lose faith. That is important. If you lose faith, Swamiji told, no God can help you. If you have that faith, your Guru will have to bless you. That will, he used to use that word. He will have to. Even the Guru has no choice, he will have to bless you. So that is the power of such devotion and surrender. That's what Shri Krishna advised Arjuna, because his mind was so loving to Krishna. If all other philosophical things his mind didn't grasp, he said, at least you surrender to me, I will take care of that.
That's very beautiful, Baba. And I'm also remembering one other thing that I've heard you say in the past that I cherish, and that was that after the long discourse by Krishna to Arjuna, Arjuna still had some doubt. And finally, Krishna said, as I remember you're saying, just pick up the bow and shoot the arrow. The enemy is already defeated. The battle is already won. Can you explain a little bit about that meaning also?
You see, 2 days ago also in another session I explained, many people misunderstand Bhagavad Gita that it teaches violence. It doesn't teach violence. It teaches the duty in this world. If a thing is imposed on you, if you have to defend a larger cause, then you defend, it is your right. But here Arjuna had become psychologically so much weak, seeing the relatives on the other side, everything. What Krishna's teachings were, though some of them might be very noble people, but they have sided with the wicked, bad guys. So that is why they are fit to be killed. You have to take up weapons and fight it out. Then it was becoming almost very difficult for Arjuna to understand psychologically. So Krishna worked as a psychiatrist. He said, Ki Bas, I have killed everyone already. You don't have to kill. You don't imagine that you are going to kill somebody. But you just take up the bows and arrows, shoot the arrows. The rest I will take care. That's how Krishna psychologically gave a push to him.
Baba, you see in the background the photographs. This
Yeah, I understood you are in Carson.
Baba, and Carson Ashram has been missing Baba these last 2 years.
Instantly I recognized Carson. We do miss America. We do miss all of you.
Baba, last question. Mark asks, what's the difference between imagination and creativity?
Imagination, when it increases in a larger sphere, we call it creativity. Both are same actually, in my opinion. Both. But to some people, when we just use the word imagination, it appears to be small and very ordinary. Oh, that is all, only imagination. But the same thing, if we use the word, oh, he has created. So then that appears so wonderful. A creation happens out of imagination for an ordinary human consciousness.
Thank you, Baba.